What is up, Flick fans, and welcome back to my channel. Avengers Infinity War week is here, and the premiere is tonight. I am not going, but I get to see it Thursday, so every day building up to this film, I will have a brand new video. Starting today, we are doing Marvel heroes, more specifically MCU heroes. I'm counting down my least favorite to my most favorite, what impact they have had on me personally. I'm accounting powers, I'm accounting screen time, what they've done in their relationships, how they've developed as characters, their story arcs. Everything is coming into my decision on ranking these characters. Now, the beauty, or curse, I guess, of having this many characters on a list is everyone's list. And this isn't an opinion, this is fact. It will not be the same as mine. So I might have somebody at number one that you guys have in your 20s, but you know what? That's the beauty of superheroes and movies and Marvel in general, is you can have such different opinions, but we all agree that we love Marvel movies and we love superheroes. I'm so excited to talk about this today. And just so you guys know, I kind of kept off the anti-heroes, so characters like Loki, M'Baku, Nebula, and Mordo, they're not on this list because they belong on something else. So at the bottom, everybody probably anticipated this. We have Quicksilver, a hero that was in one movie. He was teased in Captain America Winter Soldier. He came about. He didn't have much of a story arc. He wasn't as good as his X-Men counterpart, and it's just not a character that's really memorable to me. Now, he did some really cool things in the movie. I like the way that they portrayed his speed and his relationship with his sister, but those are really the only two things that kept me on board with his character. And then when he was killed off, it's like, oh, that's sad, but I don't care. Up next, we have Lady Sif, and I'm also kind of including the Warriors 3 here. Now, I liked Sif. I thought she was really cool in Thor, but we never really got the character development that we wanted from first seeing her character. She was a little bit disappointing in the Dark World, and then Ragnarok, she's not there. I think she has a lot of potential in the future, but right now she is low on this list because what we've seen of her thus far doesn't quite measure up to the competition. Next up is Wong, and I love Wong as a character, don't get me wrong, but we are also incorporating screen time, and we've just not gotten a chance to get attached to Wong yet. There are some great lines in Doctor Strange. He brings the humor as well as the straightness that we love from the character in the comic books, but we just really haven't gotten his potential. I feel like eventually, especially after seeing Infinity War, he might move up this list, but right now I have to put him low just because we've not seen the guy very much. Next up is Mantis. Look, I had a blast watching Mantis in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but in the same vein of Wong, we've only got to see her one time on screen, and when you're incorporating something like screen time, even though she's a very good character, she doesn't have enough to be as memorable as the characters above her, because there are characters up there that have a little bit less screen time than Mantis, but Mantis just doesn't bring what I think she will bring in the future, especially when we watch Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now we are getting into characters that we have seen for a while. Look, I really enjoy Don Cheadle's presence as an actor, and I think he brings a lot when it comes to the relationship between him and Tony, but for me, some reason, every time I see him, I'm like, that's the one Avenger I just think is way more replaceable than everybody else. He's not brought anything to the table yet that's really sparked my interest like crazy. Now, what happened to him in Civil War was very, very sad, and it brought a lot of emotional depth to the story. He just still hasn't stood out to me for some reason, and that's why he's so low on this list. I still think he's okay. Okay. I mean, Okoye. She's next, but listen, the reason she's so low is only, and there's one reason, is because she's been in one movie and she doesn't have enough screen time yet. I enjoyed her as a character, but when I look at the characters above her, they've had more time to flesh out as a character, and that's the only reason she's so low. She is such a great female character. I cannot wait to see her again. I just want to see more from her. That's my only complaint. She's had very limited screen time. That's why she's so low on this list, and you look at the characters on here, we've just seen so much of them. I think Okoye is great, and I can't wait to see her again. The Ancient One, played by Tilda Swinton, what she brought to Doctor Strange is something that I don't think a lot of people saw coming. There were complaints about her casting, but once she was cast in the role, I kind of shoved that all to the side. I watched her performance, and she was just so good. One, she's really powerful, like Doctor Strange and Wong, but two, she just masters the role of being the person in charge, the one who influences Doctor Strange. She has that humor, she has the subtlety. Tilda Swinton brings so much to this role. She's not in the movies enough, and of course what happened to her in Doctor Strange, she probably won't be in there anymore, but I still think she's a great character. Next up, we have Gamora. Look, I don't have any problem with Gamora. I actually think Gamora is great. She's a really good fighter. I love Zoe Saldana as the character, but for some reason, she's the one Guardian for me that just doesn't like have that pop that the other ones have. You know, she's a little bit dull, and I think that might just be the way her character is portrayed. It's no fault of hers. She does a wonderful job in the role, but I just haven't seen that meat that I've seen from the other Guardians, and that's why she's so low on this list, but I still think she's great. Heimdall. This is the one character on this list I just want him to be in every single movie with a major role. I think he's in Infinity War. That's not confirmed. I hope he doesn't die because the guy has so much potential. I think Marvel casted him before they really knew what they had with Idris Elba, and I think he brings a lot more to that role than a lot of actors would. I think Heimdall's a great character, but unfortunately, he's just not been fleshed out as much as we want him to. Shuri has the same problem as Okoye. She's not really been in the movies as much as she wanted to, but she really stood out to me, and for some reason, I attach myself so much to her in Black Panther, and every time I see her in the trailers for Infinity War, I'm like, that is so exciting. I keep thinking of what's going to happen when she meets Tony Stark. Maybe if she'll team up with Spiderman in the future. There's so many possibilities with this character, and there are rumors that she's going to don the Iron Man suit at some point. I don't believe them, but how cool would that be? Because she's just great. Now we are getting into the big guns. Falcon is up next on my list, and the only reason he is this low is just because I don't think his powers really measure up to the other characters. Less movies than the next guy on this list, but his interaction with Captain America in Winter Soldier are some of my favorite interactions in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. He needs to be fleshed out just a tad bit more, but I think the more he's in this universe, because I don't really see him dying anytime soon, the more they will expand his role, and the farther he will move up on this list. I think Falcon's a cool character, and Anthony Mackie kills it every single time. All right, you guys were waiting for him. You thought he was going to be lower than he actually was, but once again, this is subjective. I think Hawkeye, the only reason he is this high is because he was fleshed out so well in Age of Ultron, and he had so much time to develop. It kind of made up for what they did to him in Avengers, making him a mindless zombie, but really, Hawkeye is just such a cool character, even though you know he's going to die if he goes out and fights somebody like a Thanos. I think Jeremy Renner plays it straight. He also brings the humor. He can do so many things. He's dynamic as an actor. I do not think he measures up in terms of abilities and what he brings to the team, but in terms of him developing his story and getting a really good character arc, yeah, that's why he's so high on this list. Now we come to Vision, who I think is one of the most powerful Avengers. Unfortunately, he is this low on the list only because they haven't really fleshed him out as much as they have a Hawkeye or a Falcon, but you still see Jarvis in there. You see that character that you have known and loved from the other Iron Man movies, and his powers are just so amazing. I have to put him a tad bit higher because he's such a cool character, and his introduction in Age of Ultron is still one of my favorite things about that movie. I can't wait to see what they do in Infinity War because you know he's going to be a major character. And we come to Scarlet Witch. I think Scarlet Witch is a very dynamic character. She needs to nail that accent a little bit more because she kind of flip-flops on it every now and then. But that's really the only thing that I dislike about the character because Elizabeth Olsen is so good in the role. Her powers are incredible, which puts her high up on the list. I actually think she's one of the most powerful Avengers when it comes to all of them. And her story hasn't popped yet, but I feel like it's about to in Infinity War with her and Vision. So I'm really excited to see what they do. I thought she was great in Infinity War, and she had a really cool introduction in Age of Ultron. One of the funniest characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The only complaint I have with Drax is that they haven't given him the action scenes that he deserves because he is such a powerful character in the comics. And then you see him in the movies, it's like, yeah, he's strong, but what else can he do? No, trust me, Drax can take on anyone. I want to see that, but when it comes to character development, how funny he is, and what he brings to the movies thus far, he's not my favorite Guardian, obviously, but I really think he's a great character, and I think he has much room to develop. And we come to Bucky. Not Winter Soldier, because that's the bad version, but we are talking Bucky when he gets his mind clean. I think he is such a great character. Sure, he doesn't say much, but his arc, his storyline, what he has brought to movies like Winter Soldier and Civil War, being really the prime target of those two films, I think his character is just one of the most influential, essential, and important characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And then you have Sebastian Stan giving a great performance every time he's on screen. Can't wait to see him again, and maybe one day he'll be Captain America. Knew she was coming. We're talking Black Widow. In terms of abilities, we're going to take her down here because she can't really do much. She has a lot of cool gadgets. She's a spy, and she's a really good fighter. But when you're talking about gods and superhumans and whatnot, she doesn't really measure up in terms of abilities, but she's had so many great story arcs throughout the films. I think my favorite performance of her still is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. She does so good in that movie. She makes you believe in her. She makes you not believe in her, and she brings it again in Civil War. I can't wait to see what they do with her in Infinity War because I think she's once again going to be a main character. Scarlett Johansson is great in the role. I think Black Widow is a great female character. That's right, next up is Yondu. I think Yondu is one of the most underrated characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, especially when we are talking his character arc in Guardians 2. While I don't love that movie, I think he brings so much to the table. He made me really sit down and say, wow, I think this movie is so emotional because what his character did, I think Michael Rooker plays him so well, and then you see what happens to him, and it makes me want to. Doctor Strange. I love Doctor Strange. I think Benedict Cumberbatch is perfect for the character. Now, he's only had one movie, and we've not really seen him since. We saw him a little bit in Thor Ragnarok, but really, he just hasn't had time to flesh out like these other major characters had in front of him. But Benedict Cumberbatch was so good that I have to put him at this spot because of what he brought to the Marvel Cinematic Universe with the powers and what he gave us as a character. And just seeing him in the trailers gets me really excited. So Doctor Strange is at this point on this list because of those reasons. At number 11, I have Groot, and number 10, I have Rocket. I will talk about them together because these guys are basically inseparable. I love Groot in the first Guardians. Now, of course, the Groot that we get in Guardians 2 is different from the Groot in Guardians 1, but we're just going to pair them as one character because they're both so lovable, especially little baby Groot, even though I miss the adult Groot. And then Rocket, what Bradley Cooper does with this character, he makes you feel for him in the second movie, but he also makes you hate him at times because of the way that he acts, and that has to do with the emotions that he brings just by doing a voiceover that is impressive. We loved him in the first one. Can't wait to see both of these characters in Avengers Infinity War. They are just such a great example of what you can do with motion capture, CGI, and great voice actors. Number 9 is Ant-Man. I can't tell you guys how much I laughed the first time I saw Paul Rudd in that suit. Now, he's not the most powerful, obviously, and I cannot wait to see the Wasp, by the way. She looks fantastic. But I just think what Paul Rudd did in that movie was make us feel for this character that we shouldn't feel for, make us laugh when we probably shouldn't have been laughing, and give us a movie that was way more impressive than anybody ever thought. Guys, forget that he existed. Nick Fury is a superhero, and Nick Fury was the reason that the Avengers came together in the first place. The first time I saw him in Iron Man, I'm like, that's Sam Jackson. He's perfect. And yes, I loved him in the Avengers, but when I really fell in love with him was Winter Soldier. He was such a menacing face, but he turned out to be this soft, emotional guy that you thought that you knew and loved, and it turned out that he was exactly what you thought he was. I just think he brings so much to the role, and then when he shows up at the end of Winter Soldier, and he's like, you have to keep both eyes open, he's just so good. Chris Pratt as Star-Lord. The guy is so good in everything, but what he really does to make me love him as Star-Lord is he kind of cuts back a little bit. He has that suave, he kind of reminds me, and it's weird that I'm saying this, of a Kurt Russell when he was younger. He just makes you fall in love with him. He's so funny. His character does so many things that I think are so impressive, and he really learns as an actor as you see him progress from the beginning of Guardians 1 all the way to Avengers Infinity War, or at least what we think he's going to bring, but he's Chris Pratt. You know he's going to bring it. I love this character. But next up, we have Thor, and I think it's so weird to watch Thor progress from all of the movies. I went back the other day and watched from the beginning of the MCU all the way until now, and then one movie he doesn't have a beard, and then he does have a beard, and then he's got blonde eyebrows. Did you guys ever notice that? But looks aside, what he brings to Thor at this point, the way he has progressed from this kind of snarky, snooty guy, this god of thunder, to this really funny character, one that has a lot of emotional depth, and now he is the king of Asgard, and you can see that in him, but he still brings the humor, something I never thought I would have said about Thor. I'm really excited to see him in Infinity War because apparently he has the second most amount of screen time. I just think he owns it as this character, one of the most irreplaceable Marvel characters ever. Hulk. And I'm not just talking Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner. I'm talking the character of Hulk in Thor Ragnarok, because what Hulk brought was fantastic. But then you get into Mark Ruffalo and what he does, he is so just interesting as a person, a human being. You see him in other movies, and then watching him in this, he really kind of plays the same guy. But Bruce Banner just flows out of him like milk and honey. He is perfect for this role. I think he has such a great relationship with characters like Thor now and Tony Stark. He brings everything to these movies, and just seeing him in those teaser clips so far for Infinity War, I'm so excited to see him again. I love this character. You guys are going to have to forgive me for putting him this high on the list, but growing up, I was just a massive Spider-Man fan, and after Andrew Garfield left, I said, who in the world can they get to replace this guy as Spider-Man? Not because I thought Andrew Garfield was incredible, but because they had Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, both of which I thought did a good job. That's right, you can appreciate both of them as Spider-Man, but Tom Holland just swoops in and gives me my personal favorite Peter Parker I have ever seen. I think he embodies everything that Peter Parker is. I've not seen everything I wanted from his Spider-Man yet. I still think he needs some of those monumental action scenes, and we need to see him fight a good villain. But right now, Tom Holland as this character is so great. Everything he did in Homecoming on top of Civil War was fantastic. He's so funny, so dynamic. He embodies a high schooler. I'm just a huge Spider-Man fan. You'll have to forgive me, but he is number 4 on this list. Wow, I can't believe he's this high, but when I first saw Black Panther in Civil War, I said, you know what, this character could end up being my favorite Marvel character if they bring us a great Black Panther movie, and guess what? They brought us a great Black Panther movie, and while he's not my favorite Marvel character, he is just the one that I think about constantly because he is so BA, so cool. He has the suave, he has the swag, he is a king just like Thor, and I think the most important thing about Black Panther is, no, it's not his abilities, even though those are fantastic. He just brings this presence every time he's on screen, and I cannot wait to see where they go with this character. Is it Captain America? Is it Iron Man? Which one? Who's it going to be? Number 2 is Iron Man, Tony Stark. And I never thought I would put him at number 2 after watching Iron Man, the first movie, for the first time, because I fell in love with this character. He was my favorite superhero at one point. In everything he did in the movies, he has had this incredible story arc. He's changed so much, and you believe every second of it, because what Robert Downey Jr. does as the character, it is debatable that he is the greatest casting in a comic book movie role ever. I don't know if he's my number 1 necessarily, but you could definitely make the argument, and I wouldn't argue against you, because Iron Man is incredible. I've never done a list this long, and number 1 is Captain America, and I'm so glad I finally get to talk about him, because what Steve Rogers is, what he embodies, he is the ultimate superhero in my opinion. He never backs down from a fight. He says it in every movie, I can do this all day, and you know what? I think that's the best representation of Captain America. He really can do it all day. He can be a hero, he can be lovable, he can be heartfelt, he can be emotional, he can have this edge where you don't agree with him all the time, because there were points in Civil War where I'm like, I don't know, you might be doing a little something too crazy, Steve Rogers. You need to calm down a little bit. But you know what? That's what makes a hero amazing. An incredible story arc, dynamic, diverse. He just embodies all of it. Chris Evans as this character, he really came into his own during Winter Soldier, and he hasn't let off the brakes. I hope he doesn't die in Infinity War, but you know what? It is a possibility, and if you do, Chris Evans, I think you gave us potentially my personal favorite superhero of all time. Thank you guys. I'm losing my voice because I've talked so much for watching this video and sticking through this to see who my number 1 favorite superhero in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is. But the more important question here is, what is your list? You don't have to give me all of them. Give me your top 5 or your top 10. I cannot wait to see them, to see how your lists compare to mine. And later on, potentially, this might be my video tomorrow, I'm counting down the villains before we get to see Thanos on screen. I cannot wait to talk about those characters. You guys are the absolute best. Be sure to stay tuned to my channel all week, because these videos are going to be pumped out. And then Thursday night, be on the lookout around 11 o'clock. My Avengers review will be dropping. I will catch you guys later.